possibly the biggest thing to come out of 1985, a movie that is near and dear to, I believe, everybody on this panel, Back to the Future.
Look,
little film directed by Robert Zemeckis, written also by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. That's right. Produced by Amblin Entertainment, which is Spielberg's unit. Starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, Thomas F. Wilson, and Claudia Wells. And probably one of the most hilarious sci-fi angles for a movie I'd seen, where a kid travels back in time, encounters his parents 30 years ago, and his mom accidentally falls in love with him.
Yeah, and they make out.
Oh, gross.
How's that?
To this day, anytime I watch that movie, the scene with the DeLorean reveal, the time machine reveal, where it
comes off the back of
the truck, with I still get goosebumps every time. I know what's coming. I know like just note for note, and it's just like, oh, I love it.
Well, we're privileged to be in a room with a DeLorean owner from the past. I know you don't own it anymore, but you ran with the DeLorean crowd for a long time.
So this was the DMC-12. We're talking about the official one and only DeLorean.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and it's because of that car. Because of that film that anyone knows what the car is, including me. Yeah. I mean, I came to be very well versed and really connect with the actual DeLorean backstory and the sort of history of the car. But yeah, I mean, everyone knows that car because of Back to the Future, and everyone will always know that car for generations.
It kind of came and went right when the movie came out.
The car, so the company went under in late 1982. There was this American company that acquired all the parts, what was left. They actually assembled some half-finished cars and parts that were left over into 1983 model year cars, and then it was over.
Yeah.
And they used,
it's kind of an ironic car in the movie.
Well, so I have a quick funny story about this. So as a longtime DeLorean owner, we would have DeLorean car shows every 2 years in a city around the country, and
that's where you get great pictures of like street parking of like
all DeLoreans.
It's so funny.
I mean, there would be between 100 and 150 DeLoreans at each of these things, and Bob Gale was nice enough to always come to these shows. He's a total sweet guy, just still loves the movie and is very protective of it. He has said, like, yeah, Universal is not making a Back to the Future 4 or any other Back to the Future film without Bob Zemeckis and I, and we're not having any part of that. You know, he appreciates the three as they stand, but you know,
even the third one?
Yes, stop it. Stop it. And it somehow came up that he told a story about how during the making of the film, of course, there was the whole thing with Eric Stoltz. They filmed a bunch of stuff with him, and
so Eric Stoltz was Michael J. Fox's
original
role. And why did they not like it?
They said that he just wasn't the right fit
it just
for the
wasn't
role, and
fitting.
I've read interviews with Eric Stoltz where he completely agrees. Yeah. He feels like he was potentially miscast with the rest of the cast.
And they had originally wanted Michael J. Fox, but he was tied up with family ties. But they eventually obviously worked it up. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, the Bob Gale story at the DeLorean car show is apparently during the making of the film, there was at one point where Universal came to Zemeckis and Bob Gale and said, you know, we've got Ford interested. They want to maybe sponsor, get the car, pay us to put the Mustang in the movie, and I won't repeat it because we're censoring ourselves here. Yeah, but Bob Gale said in that meeting, Doc Brown does not drive an effing Mustang. And it was just the room at the car show, like when he tells the story, just erupted. That night, people had made like silk screen T-shirts of Doc Brown does not drive an effing Mustang.
Well, think about what the Mustang looked like in 1985. It was like a sedan.
It was hot garbage. I mean,
it was kind of big.
I used to have it was ridiculous. It was the stupidest looking Mustang. I had an '88 Mustang, but it looked ridiculous.
Yeah, they looked awful.
It was an old man car.
Yeah, totally.
I'm incredibly biased, but
it's in Goonies.
I think
there isn't one of those in Goonies.
I'm super biased, but I very much think that the DeLorean is practically like the fourth lead in that film. Like if it had been any other vehicle, it just would not. Like I actually think the film would still be a great film, but it is a big reason why that film is so memorable.
Well, you look at that car and like everything about it says, like, I don't know why it says Time Machine or Science Mobile or whatever you want to label it, but rolling doors, in it, like a fiberglass chassis, just
the stainless steel body
also was just like, whoa. But even the gull wing doors, like there weren't that many cars that had that.
Well, no, there was
there
was a car called the Bricklin in the 70s that had a oddly similar backstory to the DeLorean, where it was made by this like crazy entrepreneur.
The Lamborghini's doors went up like that.
They were called
something else.
scissor doors.
Scissor doors.
But yeah, like basically the only other well-known car that had gull-wing doors was the Mercedes 300 SL in the 1950s, which was the first car to do it. And that's actually, when you read his autobiography, John DeLorean, that's why he put gull wings. One of the reasons why he put gull wings on the DeLorean is because he loved it on that Mercedes when he was young.
So this has been Cars of 1985.
Yeah,
thanks for tuning in.
It's all part of
it is all part of Back to the Future. I think the thing that stands out to me about Back to the Future to this day is that, like Ghostbusters the year prior, it stands out as an interesting mashup of sci-fi and comedy. Yeah. Like it's something that made it super accessible and didn't feel just super sci-fi.
Yeah. It's also a perfectly paced film.
It is.
It is.
The pacing and the writing are so on point in that movie, and like,
every performance too.
Yeah. And we were flying back from Boston a few months ago, and one of the guys that works for IGN was watching it on his laptop, and I was amazed, having not seen it in a few years. Like, I could not take my eyes off of his screen. Like, I was doing my own thing, but I kept watching Back to the Future because it's a film that demands your attention because of the way, I think not only because of the nostalgia over it, but it's just, it looks great, it feels great, it has a great story. It's, you know, in my eyes, it's a perfect film.
There's a standing rule. I mean, if you pass it by, if it's on TV, you're going to stop and watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
you will
it is one
stop
of the few movies that does that. No, I completely agree.
I like also how it's serialized. By the ending, there's a cliffhanger and like the big, like, you know, DeLorean flying in, like reveal at the end. And you know there's going to be another one, and like I'm okay with the sequels, but like that was just so cool. This thing.
Yeah, that blew my mind as a kid because even though like Empire Strikes Back ends in just a bad way, like I'll never forget the ending of that movie because it was the first time I saw a movie where the heroes lost. I was like, what? That's awful. Like what's going on? But Back to the Future was the only other standout in my mind from that era, just because of the way it ended and that there was more story to tell, but they weren't going to tell you right now.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I remember as a kid seeing this. You know, growing up in New York and just going, I need to see that next movie.
And there's like
I didn't
a
see it for a
freaking
very
trailer
long
in the end of the second one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the funny thing about the ending of the first one is they showed the test screeners to audiences with that last sequence in black and white because none of the special effects had been added in because they were afraid that people would hate it. They were afraid that people would be like, well, where's the rest of the story? Yeah. So they didn't finish the movie until they had shown it to test audiences and had gotten the reaction like, yes, it was awesome, and we definitely want more of it.
So fun fact, you may know that Back to the Future 2 and 3 were shot back-to-back, which is much more common practice today. Yeah. They were shot under a code name in order to try and maintain secrecy while they were shooting it, and the code name of the film was Paradox.
Ah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Blue Harvest.
Yeah, Blue Harvest, exactly. That's the code name for Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Those like shirts you see from Blue Harvest, so cool. I'd love to see what the Paradox one looked like. Yeah. Like they have crew branding, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing I'll leave off with before we switch over to our next film. I went back and watched a review of Siskel and Ebert because you have to whenever you're talking about an 80s movie. And this quote from Roger Ebert stuck out to me, where he said, everyone grows up thinking, my parents were never old. The parents, this is the secret parents have from kids, they don't think they're ever old. This movie plays with the paradox in such a beautiful way that it's not just a time travel picture and not just an action picture. And that quote like really resonated with me because it's true. I feel like the older we get, the more we're like, I'm still cool. And it's like, well, wait, you're the parent in the room, so you...
yeah, my daughter will have no idea of... Like her image of me forever will be as probably, you know, late 30s, early 40s guy by the time she sort of really gets old enough to have that sort of core memory of me. Absolutely. Like, no, I was in my 20s once and a teenager once.
I owned a tiger toy that I'm holding right now.
That was one of the things that was like really interesting. I watched it last night.
Okay.
This is hers, by the way, Sam. Okay, we'll get to that.
I haven't seen it in a while, a couple years. Like, actually sat down and watched it, and my girlfriend grew up not really wasn't a huge fan of it. So when I was watching it last night, A, she was impressed by the idiot grin I had on my face the whole time, and B, her biggest takeaway was at the end of the movie. I was like, well, "What do you think?" And she's like, I really love the way that the parents ended up because they have this like sea change from who they are at the beginning of the movie, and I thought that was really funny. I was like, yeah, I hadn't really considered that. That is really cool.
And that gave Crispin Glover enough money to do all the crazy stuff he did for the rest of his career.
Now, Biff, make sure 2 coats of wax this time, okay?
There you go. There you go.